Hello, my name's CJ. I'm with Colorado Gun Restorations. I'm going to do a short video on a Winchester model 1894 that we're restoring. We've already disassembled the gun and found all the parts to be in good working order. Two of the screws, these are carrier screws that won't give up. They're just been in too long and they're too rusted. So we have two options. We can drill them out and replace them, or more than likely we'll leave them in. The customer would rather have them just left in and save some money on that. So we'll be taking this barrel off, we'll sandblast this receiver, we'll surface grind this receiver, and then finish it, and most likely we'll blue it. We're considering case coloring it, but we have found, I don't know if you can see, if I get the right angle, you see lines in it, and those lines, you think they're just scratches, but they're not. They're actually lines that were put in it when the casting was poured. And I tried to chase those lines one day through a receiver, and I ended up going halfway through the receiver and the gun was gone. So what we'll do is we'll surface grind them and we'll see what the lines look like. When we see these lines, they're different in each gun. The worst ones I've ever seen are in 94s. And when they're prominent, we found that the gun doesn't necessarily case color very well, because you'll see these lines after you case color. Something about shocking at the high temperatures tends to accentuate them. So probably just to make it a prettier gun and more original, because it was originally blued, we'll blue this gun. We are putting custom wood on this gun. The reason we took it apart is we've already cut the wood and we've started finishing it. We're at 400 grit. It has a nice feather in it. It's about a 3X. We're going to turn this into a deluxe. We'll go ahead and checker it and try to make it look as original as to an old deluxe for this customer. And the forearm that we got also has a nice feather in it. And this is English walnut. So we'll show the stages as we go, the checkering, the surface grinding, the prep, and then the bluing, and then the final installation. And we'll have about another 5 weeks into this project before it's done. Be back to you soon. Just a quick little video to show what this looks like when it's laid out, so you can start to see how the checkering is going to wrap around. So I'll make little points in the wood here, and then I'll continue to do it with some other techniques to make sure the lines are straight, and we'll start the checkering process with our power tool just to lay the lines, and then we'll finish it by hand. We're checking in with our Winchester 1898. This receiver, we did have to take it to the surface grinder. It had pretty extensive pitting, as you recall, along the side of it. Now we've taken it by hand with a sandpaper, and you can see that everything is flat and true because we did this all by hand with a sandpaper and a straight edge. And we've worked this all the way to, actually I worked the side of this to 1500 grit is where it's at right now, and then we're just doing, you just do a light sand and then a buff, light sand buff, and that way you bring that final finish out, make it look like a mirror. As you can see, these parts have already been done. Still have some work to do on the butt plate and a few other parts, but we'll be bluing tomorrow. We have several other guns to go through the tanks tomorrow. And if you haven't seen my bluing video, this is the bluing room where the tanks are. The barrel was extensively pitted. I had to take a bastard file to start this barrel to really get the pitting out, and then I worked it by hand to 400 grit, and it's looking great. I was able to actually save all of the original print by working around it, which just takes a little bit of time and effort, but you can actually work around it and still get the pitting out on all the sides of it. Magazine tube has been a bit tricky. It's got a few dents in it. You can probably see them there in the videos. They're just slight. Or that's the biggest one right there. It had also extensive pitting, which is really difficult to take out on these, because these, if you can see the top there, there's a seam in it. it's a rolled tube, so you have to be really careful. They're fragile, they'll split apart pretty easy. But we still have a little bit more work to do on it, and it'll look brand new when we're done, aside from the dent. Those dents are pretty hard to take out on these. If you run a bearing through there or something, you're likely to split it. So I don't think you'll see it once we blend it and blue it. Everything when it's shiny metal jumps out at you a lot more than it does when it's blued. So we'll check back in when we get back down to the basement and put the gun back together. We still have the trigger, hammer, and lever. I'm going to case color, and I engraved the hammer to make it look nice, kind of an extra special for this person. We'll check in on that when it's done. The wood is completed, 1500 grit. It's been checkered and it's ready for the final hand rub out. All right, welcome back. These are the blue parts for our Winchester 1894. Just wanted to review them a little bit with you. With this gun, it was a little bit special. We took this to 3000 grit. So I work a grit, go to the white buffing wheel, work a grit. So basically do it by hand all the way through 1000 grit. And then I start going back and forth to the buffing wheel. The buffing wheel will show you where the marks are. And then you sand them by hand, and then shows you where the marks, and you work eventually to 3000, which is the last grit you can see. And then by the time you blue it, the rust that's formed by the bluing will fill in the 3000 grit, and it looks like a mirror. The only thing you're seeing here, probably the reflection, is the oil that's on it, since it was sealed with oil afterwards. But the parts came out just mirror shine, real beautiful. I mean, this entire top was pitted. We have to take all these, I've already reassembled part of the bolt there, or the entirety of the bolt. But we took all the parts so they match, same sheen. If you remember, this butt plate was pitted dramatically. So that took a lot of work to dig all that pitting out, reshape everything, and then take it to 3000 grit. We have most of the main parts right here. Over here, the one thing about a Winchester 1894 is it's not shy of parts. If you were to take a Marlin build around the same era, you'd find it probably, I'm guessing, about 40% of the parts. Much easier gun to put together, but the Winchesters are unique in their own way. They're not a Marlin. So even the sides of the locking block that goes up into to lock the bolt from going back. We even took the shine up on the side, because you'll see that sticking up and out a little bit. On the receiver, again, working that to 3000 grit without any marks. It was a very time-consuming process, but it came out really nice. With the barrel, there was enough pitting on here that I actually had to start with a bastard file and basically cut the pitting out, then work with a fine file it flat, and then a couple of grits. Beyond the file, I worked in 320 and then up to 400 grit. And one of the difficult parts is keeping these edges sharp. It may be hard to see in there with the oil, but it's easy to tell when a gun's been refinished when people just sand it and then they actually round over the edges, and you can see that. Also, we were able to save all the print, which was really nice in this gun. I didn't have to re-engrave it. But we basically work around it. I take the file and I work the top, the bottom, and then eventually you work the sandpaper to blend it in. And there may be some slight pitting still inside there, but as you can see with the naked eye, it's pretty difficult to find it. With the magazine tube, as I stated before, it's a split tube. You can see that line right there. That makes it difficult to deal with dents. We had a dent here. There was dents actually in both places where they intersect the metal that holds it in. You know, it was pushed and pulled over time, so it was a dent. This one you won't see, it'll be behind this. And then this dent, I worked it out a little bit. There it is, you can see it. But it'll be behind the ring here, so you won't see it. If I run a ball bearing down here, it's just likely to split the two right apart, and then I've got a much bigger problem. So, but we got most of the pitting out of it, and once it's blued, it's really hard to see any imperfections in it. So we're going to put this back together. Tomorrow I'm going to case color the lever, the hammer, and the trigger which was an option on the 1894s back then, a factory option. So just doing that for fun with this gun. And then the custom wood is almost done, and we'll get that wood on in about 3 weeks. It should be dried and ready to put on. And I'll show you the case colored parts when we get done with those tomorrow. And we'll have this gun ready to go to its owner soon. Thanks for watching. Okay, I want to show you the finished product before this 1894 Winchester goes back to its owner tomorrow. So this is the wood. We spent about close to 2.5 months on this wood. It's really, I've rubbed it out many times with once I'm done and I put the coats on, then to give it that nice satiny even look, I rub several coats over several days intervals with using rotten stone and that velvet oil, just to bring out that satiny sheen and really give you some depth to the wood. We checkered this a bit flat like they did back in the day. There are 16 lines per inch, which is a bit tricky to do. It's actually quite a bit wider than the 20 lines per inch we typically do, but they did them fast at the factory, so we just tried to make it look a little bit more original. Put some engraving in the hammer, case colored these parts. These were all different options back in the day, so it just kind of makes it a fun gun. Obviously, it's been restored. Everything's been taken to probably a higher sheen than you would ever see back in the day. They look more like post 64s almost with that coating that they put on those guns. The barrel, everything came out great. The gun functions perfect. And it's ready to go to its owner. So I hope you enjoyed the video, seeing a little bit about the process of the finishing of custom wood, the finishing of steel, and how you can take a gun that's pitted, considerable pitting as you saw on this gun, and really looked like it had been sitting outside for years, and you can just make it a fun gun to hang back on your wall, shoot it, and fire it for another 100, 150 years, whatever you want to do with it. All right, thanks for watching the video, and if you have anything you'd like to see, just make a comment there and we'll see if we can add it. I don't mind doing the videos. I'm pretty new to this, but it's kind of fun to document the process of these guns so that when I get old and gray, I can look back and enjoy them. Thanks.